The Nile River has been the lifeblood of its region for a large part of human history. The fertile floodplains of the Nile allowed humans to create an economy based on agriculture and monogamy and a more centralized and complex society, which became the cornerstone for human civilization. Nomadic hunter-gatherer humans settled in the Nile Valley at the end of the Middle Pleistocene, about 120,000 years ago. By the end of the Paleolithic period, the desert climate of North Africa had become extremely hot and dry, forcing the people of the region to concentrate along the river. Pre-series. During the pre-dynastic and early dynasties, Egypt's climate was much less dry than it is today. Large areas of Egypt were covered with warm plains full of trees and herds of ungulates grazed in it. Plants and animals were very prosperous in all environments, and the Nile region provided the needs of a large population of geese. Hunting was a common occupation for the Egyptians, and many animals were domesticated for the first time during this period. Until about 5500 BC, the small tribes living in the Nile Valley had become a set of civilizations that were capable of agriculture and animal husbandry, and today they can be identified from the remains of pottery and personal items such as their shoulders, bracelets, and beads. The largest of these early civilizations in Upper, Southern Egypt was the Bidari civilization, which probably originated from the Western Sahara. This civilization is known for its quality ceramics, stone tools, and use of copper. After Bidari, Naqada civilization, the first Naqada, Maraton, the second Naqada, Greece, and the third Naqada, Sumen, emerged. These civilizations brought numerous technological advances. From the very beginning of the first Neolithic period, the Egyptians imported obsidian from Ethiopia, which was used to make blades and other objects from stone chips. Reciprocal trade with the Levant was established in the second Naqada period, about 3600–3350 BC. This period was also the beginning of trade with the Mesopotamia, which continued until the early dynastic period and beyond. Over a period of about 1,000 years, the Naqada civilization grew from a few small agricultural communities to a powerful civilization, whose leaders had complete control over the people and resources of the Nile Valley. They expanded Egypt to the north along the Nile Delta. They also traded with Nubia to the south, Western Sahara oases to the west, and Eastern Mediterranean and Near Eastern civilizations to the east. The Naqada civilization has left a wide range of material goods, which shows the increasing power and wealth of the ruling classes. These findings also identify the personal items of its people's daily life. These items include combs, figurines, patterned pottery, quality decorative stone vases, makeup palettes, and gold, lapis lazuli, and ivory jewelry. They also invented ceramic glazes, which were widely used to decorate cups, amulets, and statues. By the Roman period, the use of written symbols began in the last stage of pre-dynastic history, which eventually gave rise to a complete hieroglyphic system for writing the ancient Egyptian language. The early dynastic period was roughly the same time as the early Sumerian Akkadian civilizations in the Mesopotamia and Elam in Iran. Menthon, an Egyptian priest of the 3rd century BC, divided the long list of Egyptian kings, from Men's to his own time, into 30 dynasties, which is still used today. He began his official history with the kingdom called Meni, or Men's in Greek, who is said to have united the two kingdoms of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. The transition to a unified state was more gradual than depicted by ancient Egyptian writers, and there are no records from the age of Men's. However, some scholars now believe that the legendary Men's may have been King Narmer. There is a ceremonial tablet of Narmer that shows him in royal robes, symbolically representing the unity of Egypt. During the early dynastic period, which began around 3000 BC, the first dynastic kings built a capital in Memphis. There, these were able to control the labor and agriculture of the fertile Delta region, as well as the important and profitable trade routes to the Levant, and strengthen their dominance over Lower Egypt. The increasing power and wealth of the kings of the early dynastic period can be seen in the glazed mastaba tombs and mortuary structures at Abydos that were built to commemorate the divine kings after their death. They were necessary for the survival and growth of the ancient Egyptian civilization. They gave legitimacy. Significant advances in architecture, art, and technology occurred during the Old Kingdom, a product of increased agricultural productivity and population, and enabled by a durable central government. They have become government officials under the leadership of the Prime Minister, collected taxes, implemented irrigation projects to improve crop yields, conscripted peasants to work on construction projects, and established a judicial system to maintain peace and order. As the central government grew in importance in Egypt, a new class of educated scribes and officials emerged. to whom the king granted estates in exchange for their services. Kings also donated land to their local religious sites and temples to ensure that these institutions would have sufficient resources to worship the king after his death. Researchers believe that these practices gradually eroded Egypt's economic life over the course of 5 centuries, and the economy was no longer able to support this large central government. As the power of the kings declined, regional governors called new monarchs questioned the authority of the king. It is believed that this, along with severe droughts between 2200 and 2150 BC, 30, caused the country to enter a 140-year period of famine and conflict, which is known as the First Intermediate Period. With the collapse of the central government of Egypt, at the end of the Old Kingdom, it was no longer possible to grow and stabilize the country's economy. Local governors could not rely on the king's help in times of crisis, and food shortages and subsequent political disputes resulted in famine and local civil wars. However, despite the difficulties, local leaders, freed from heavy tribute to the king, used their newfound independence to create a flourishing culture in the provinces. Provinces became economically richer by dominating their resources, a wealth that manifested itself in bigger and better graves for people of all classes. Provincial artists adapted cultural motifs that were previously exclusive to the royal family of the Old Kingdom and treated them as local art. Writers also founded new literary styles. The local rulers, who were no longer servants of any king, began to compete for dominance over each other's land and to accumulate political power. Until 2160 BC, the rulers of Heracleopolis controlled Lower Egypt in the north, and the Intef dynasty, a rival dynasty based in Thebes, took control of Upper Egypt in the south. With the increase of power of the Intef dynasty and the expansion of their power to the north, the conflict between the two rival dynasties became inevitable. Northern Theban forces under Nebpatru-Mentuhotep II finally defeated the Heracleopolis rulers around 2055 BC and united the two lands. They also ushered in a period of economic and cultural prosperity known as the Middle Kingdom. Middle Kingdom, a red-crowned figure from Lower Egypt, most likely Amenemhat II or Senusret II. The kings of the Middle Kingdom restored stability and prosperity to the country, resulting in a resurgence of art, literature, and massive building projects. Mentuhotep II and his 11th dynasty successors ruled from Thebes, but the prime minister Amenemhat I took over in about 1985 BC, beginning the 12th dynasty and moving the kingdom's capital to the city of Iktavi, located in Fayum. The kings of the 12th dynasty carried out land reclamation and irrigation to increase agricultural production in the region. In addition, the Egyptian army recaptured the lands of Nub, which were rich in minerals and gold. In the eastern delta, workers built a defensive structure called the ruler's walls to defend against foreign attacks by guaranteeing the military and political security of the country by the kings. And having abundant agricultural and mineral wealth, Egypt's population, art and religion flourished. The attitude of the Old Kingdom towards the gods was elitist, but the religious works and objects found from the Middle Kingdom also belonged to the lower classes. The literary works of the Middle Kingdom contain complex themes and characters and are written in eloquent prose. The art of reliefs and statues of this period, fine and coarse details have been depicted with a new technical elegance. Amenemhat II, the last great ruler of the Middle Kingdom, allowed Semitic Canaanite immigrants from the Near East to settle in the Delta region to provide sufficient labor for his mining and construction activities. However, this flamboyant construction and mining activity, along with severe Nile floods towards the end of his reign, strained the economy, causing a gradual decline into the Second Intermediate Period during the 13th and 14th dynasties. During this age of stagnation, the power of the Canaanite settlers in the Delta region gradually increased until finally they came to power as the Hyksos in Egypt.